today, I'm very honored here to introduce you actually it's a real life project I've been working on over a year. And it is, I'm leading a large team, building a functional, serverless, building a functional as a service implementation for the ERP project. My friend Chow and Vishal just talking about the cloud nature, the cloud native, the cloud, and how to leverage to migrate the legacy code into the cloud, native cloud, right? And Chow used a very good example is how you approach it to a watermelon, and then he mentioned about the seedless watermelon. So what I try to introduce here is the way we can approach to leverage different ways, like lift and shift, to leverage the legacy code into the cloud. And here is I try to create a seedless watermelon from scratch. And this is very much business driven. Okay, so for the audience here, how many of you have been using a mainframe? Okay, and how many of them actually touch the mainframe yourself? Very little. Okay, very good. All right, I remember that stuff, right? So actually, we talk about the serverless. It is not a new concept. I want to just borrow or steal from somebody. Remember, when you're using mainframe, you cannot touch it, most of them, right? And what do? It's not you're charged by what? By the CPU time or slice of the CPU time. So it is versus a subscription, it is a consumption model. You just pay for the usage. And right now, the serverless concept implementation is not different from business perspective. Okay, so also there's a few of other my friends will also in the next session we'll be talking about, in other room we'll be talking about the mainframe to the microservice as well. So when you have time, feel free to join them. So overall, I would like to talk about functional as a service, FaaS, how it matters, right? You can talk about serverless architecture, you have to leverage it into the FaaS. And also, the serverless architecture and a FaaS-based ERP. This is what I'm doing right now. And also, how we implement it. And then you can talk about the function. You cannot deviate from data, and how it's going to impact the data, and also what is the challenges, constraints, and the lessons we learn. So why function as a service FaaS matters? So we really talk about it's the abstraction. If we talk about serverless architecture, so abstraction and event-driven. So everything is almost a disruption for the industry, right? So the serviceless, the architecture is event-driven for the code execution for the underlayer, the hardware side. And their application is basically a stateless container for the events. And then functional FaaS as a service is, is orchestration of the business logics. If you put three of them off together, it's crystal clear is you can almost purely implement a consumption, just pay for the usage level. Like for Google, right? They're almost in a level they can charge your usage by second. But right now, regardless of the ERP system you're using, Oracle, SAP, when you even buy a small one like a Microsoft, the Grand Plan Dynamics, actually how many functions you'll be using? You'll be lucky to use 50%. So most of them sitting there are not useful. So basically, yeah, you have to pay for the license, whatever the menu fee you do it, you're not using it, right? At least majority of them. So by taking that approach, you can fully maximize your functionality, customize it, and use it, and really reduce your cost. So when we talk about architecture, you have to tie it up with the business, the cost, and all the attributes. So overall, the serverless stack components is FaaS, right? Function as a service, API gateway, backend as a service. But today I will be focusing on the implementation of a FaaS application, which is ERP. Okay? And also, look at the key quality attributes. That, we have 125 and even more, right? But the key 4 of them, I would highly recommend everybody to take into consideration the scalability. How we scale, that's the key features and advantage of a FaaS or serverless architecture. Modifiability is a business logic, how you can modify it, right? And give you actually, most recently, I was having a dinner with one of my friends. He owns a chip company, and we haven't met for 20 years. I was saying, how's it going? He told me his company's annual revenue is $250 million. Then we talk about, hey, what kind of ERP system are you using? Oh, no, we're not using ERP system. So how come? Right? It's too expensive. Are you sure like a Salesforce is too expensive, even for CRM? But yeah, we just use the spreadsheets. I have some people offshore. They just do the manual work for me. Everything's done. So, and I asked, why you didn't do that? They already experimented, tried to implement it, and they can fulfill 80%, almost 90% of the functionalities. But these 10 to 20% of very unique functionalities to tell his business model is not going to work. And he's not willing to pay a huge fees, like a Deloitte, to implement for them. So that's why we ended up like, hey, let's survive with that stuff. But now he's facing a big chunk of bottleneck. He want to bring the company to IPO, and he's not going to pass all these auditing and regulations compliance because he does not have the system to support it. So that's why we talk about modifiability, supportability, and availability, right? And if you look at on the right chart, is really what I try to categorize is what is the ISSS, right? Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, then function as a service. But this is majority of them is tied up with the serverless architecture. For the key is the abstraction level. For the ISSS, hardware is abstraction, and you don't need to deal with hardware, while the PaaS is on the OS and the integration level. Okay, and for the FaaS, you think about the program runtime, but from your deployment level, you will see is for FaaS, it's just function. It depends on how much details you can build on the building block, and how much you want to orchestrate them into the business flow you want to use. Okay? So now that we just mentioned about serverless architecture, the FaaS, right? Next, I would like to mention is what is application to an ERP. On the right, still most of the business are using, if you're running an ERP, the large or small, medium-sized business using on-premise, right? You have a server room, you have a data center, you have the servers, you can buy SAP module, Oracle, whatever you want to see it. And you can have a server, in CRM, HR model, SCM, financial model, whatever you want to do it. So most of them still doing it. Even like I'm very in favor of SAP, they're still doing aggressively migrate to the cloud, right? It's kind of S4HANA, but still majority of them is classic, okay? And they're still doing a lot of stuff. If you see majority of business are in the classic, everybody's thinking about it. In the middle is really, it's a SaaS, service or function-based ERP. And in that way, what you can do is you can take the most of the top brand, like a Salesforce, right, for the CRM, and you can use NetSuite for the financial services, and you integrate them together and build a cloud, like a mixed kind of ERP, and then you can abstract certain functions and to really tell your business needs, and that can be done easier. Okay, but truly, this is you go down to one level in the SaaS level, but if you really can go down to the FaaS level, is you build it, the building block of each function is more granular in the simple matter, and then it gives you more the tools and the functionalities, and whatever you need, you can build on that one. I just happen to use the AWS as a example, right? Like AWS Lambda, you can just orchestrating everything and track all the events from your functions, and then you have use the RDS, Amazon Dynamic DB, and to hold that stuff, and that can be done easier. And in the bottom half of that, this is a typical example for ERP, right? You have the marketing and the lead to cash side, and you will see each one of them, like lead to cash, CPQ, CRM, order fulfillment, and each one can be a high-level function, or you can drill down to each details. And also, the next level is you get the leads, you convert the sales to order, you have to procure, right? Procure, and then you have to collect the bill, procure to pay. That's another big block. It's driven down in the business requirement. It's bottom line is how you extract the business requirement and build and abstract into the functionality level. Then you have to take care of the finance, right? Record to report, and you can all the functions I can enumerate here. And that is the requirement. Usually you do a lot of discovery, requirement gathering, and then you think about your, when you're building these building blocks, you really have to address each quality attributes, which one is the most important to you, and also the performance is one of them as well, okay? So from that perspective, so each function actually have different non-functional requirements, and each one can have different quality attributes as well. It really is a business driven, and vendor by vendor. Hopefully, down the road, there will be open source. And that it will be a disruption for the large business like SAP or Oracle. But I think probably it's a few years away, right? And like I even talked to Google, it's like, hey, you build all this infrastructure very well. Why won't you build a business application? They are not interested. They just want to build the platform open the platform for everybody to build like a Kubernetes. They can build on top of that, use the container, Docker, and then you can build on that, provide the business usage. So this is pretty much the future that's coming forward. So now get down to the level of details, okay? So this is the implementation we did. I take out all these, the client's name, but this is, if you look at this one, you have more than 25 SaaS vendors, okay? Each one have majority of functions, right? Almost everything you can survive for that. And how you put them together, you can use a cloud integration platform. You can have the legacy one, but usually you can either choose, like MuleSoft, just recently acquired by Salesforce, or you can use their Boomi. You can put them together, which is on the cloud level, make sure security is there, and based on each function, what you need, you abstract the level of the details and create your orchestration, like an order workflow. Actually, the detail is the devil is in the details, right? So that is the one you want to, these workflows, every business is different. Large or small, you have your unique needs from your order, because some of them are doing manufacturing, some of them do finance. Different industries have different specific needs. But if your architecture is right, one company can go away. You don't know any SaaS vendor can go away tomorrow, right? However, if you have architecture level over there, you can always fill in the next one, or you can, someone didn't do very well, you can pick up the top brand to replace it. That is the beauty of the architecture. You have to lay the solid ground to make sure there's no impact. And then the business continuity in the contract, that's a separate thing, but you can do that. But think about further, that if you have open source, here you have to go to different vendors, okay? And that's something I can talk about later. And if you have each building block as a function, which is open source, sitting anywhere, and it's like you create kind of a containers and Docker, and you can leverage and just pay for the usage, which will be almost like a commodity. What the beauty of the world it will be, right? Just like another example is like Uber. And so many cars sitting there, you're using maximum 2 hours a day. And then eventually, Uber came on board, disrupt the entire market. the taxi market. And they can use, most of people use Uber, then go into a taxi. Because why? Flexible consumption, pay for the usage. And here, although we move down to one level, towards that level, it's a fast level. However, still each one, you still have a different, depends on the vendor. You have different subscription fees versus truly pay for the usage, like a flexible consumption model. Still there, but it's not 100%, okay? So this is something that we can have offline discussion where it's working on this one for close to 18 months, almost go live. And also we did another one, different models. But this is something we are doing firsthand because like Deloitte is a full service provider, right? So we're doing end-to-end, make sure we're doing it. People will ask me like, why the heck you do that stuff, make it so complicated? There is a business reason. Again, architecture tied up with the business is again, we talk about watermelon approach, right? And if the requirement, especially of a new company or a spin-off, in this case is $1 billion spin-off company, they want to impress the market. They will say, hey, Charles, is there any way for me to eliminate my IT department? I don't want it because this is ERP, right? You can have different vendors, different people. Can we build something from scratch? Can I have, instead of take away the seeds from watermelon, can you give me a seedless watermelon? Of course, this is the way we're doing it. So again, you cannot eliminate IT department, but it's getting close. Instead of you more rely on the technical people, you step back, more on the functional level, you more rely on the business people to take care of your own business. That is the building of, and actually the serverless architecture and the FaaS-based ERP can fulfill this goal, and we're getting very close. Now, data, right? We take care of the function. What about data? Okay, there's always challenge. So first of all, based on what we did, like initially we talk about, hey, let's get to MDM, right? But we don't want to go to traditional model. So basically, you have to, but the way we took care of it is a unique way. But what we did is, it is possible. It's possible. I didn't say it's available right now to have a true serverless data architecture for the FaaS-based ERP, but it's certainly not easy. So basically, like you have mass data, transactional data, and reference data. In that kind of model, right, you have functional fast everywhere. You don't know it's in the cloud, and you make sure you can secure. But data, how you do that, it's really on the business requirement. You want to keep it inside, and how you manage the security of the different data, performance-wise. This is entire thing, and we run into different issues, but we sort it out. So that's why it is possible, but it's not easy. Okay, depends on how you do it. Again, case by case. Decoupling is the key for the data architecture. And there's always a balance between compute and the storage, right? It's really on the performance side. You have this data. If you pre-compute it, the performance will be much, much better. But however, how you maintain more secure and how you do the right level of computing, but it will impact your performance, how you store it. And actually last year I talked about specifically how do you improve your performance on the data side. It's a trade-off, storage and also compute. And that's one, this will be more problematic if you don't architecture it very well. If you don't if you don't conduct an architecture workshop up front, you will get a bite from the big business down the road. So just be careful, all right? Then the fundamental is the same. Talk about the data definition, category, concept, data mapping, everything fundamentally is not going to change. Because the technology people not own the data, it's business that own the data. You have to over-communicate with them, fully understand the data before you can implement. And then the data stewardship and the data elements, the business owner usually play an important role, right? They know the data mapping, they know what the data cleansing needs to be done or not to be done. So this is something, never underestimate the business stakeholder, the owners, right? Unless sometimes the business owner will be like a new organization is formed, they don't have any transition, they don't have any stuff, you have to figure it out yourself, but it will be very tough, okay? And then last but the most, data migration will impose many challenges. And like still right now, the most challenge I'm having is the data migration, right? Like you migrate 80% or 90%, even 95%, you're talking about millions of records. Can business buy into it? No, because they want all the data in, clean. But there's always a challenge. And for that perspective, fast or not fast, it doesn't matter. You have to put a lot of efforts over there and make sure that ETL process is still intact. You have to still follow that trace to move forward. Okay? That's the data side, right? It's really, I want to say there is not a standard way to do it. It has to be tell your business needs. Now, challenges, constraints, and lessons learned. So number one, I would say the stewardship. You think about it, remember the CEO told me, like, I don't want an IT department. Is that real? So we transfer one vendor, SAP or Oracle or whatever you can, the Salesforce. You have 25 SaaS vendors, and you try to pick up the best of the vendor in the brand in that area, and also pick up the best function to build a system for yourself. But who is going to maintain it? We build them a system. Who is going to maintain? How to continue to believe? So the stewardship become an issue. So basically, you transfer the ownership, the knowledge from IT to the business, which is very good, right? But however, business people don't know the technology, and they only look at their own territory, finance or marketing or sales, but don't look at others. And overall, it's a workflow. So the stewardship continues, plus continuous integration and the continuous delivery across the function services, and then compose and the orchestration between these components, it's really a challenge. So it's really the knowledge transfer, have the people who understand all the functions holistically impose a challenge. So it's really impacting like a transaction model, the HR model. You move to business and you have minimum presence of IT, how to maintain the system is a good thing, okay? And the standard, we don't have a standard for the FaaS, for each function. So what's the moving forward, you can say, I already feel that you have to deal with different vendors, right? Potentially is subject to vendor lock-in. That's why potentially I would say, if there's open source, they have a standard on the ERP side, that would be great, but we don't have this luxury. Okay, so just be aware of that stuff, potential vendor lock-in. So you have architecture way, modifiability has to be key, that you don't want any function to be locked by specific vendor. Dependency, right? And usually one SaaS vendor or one functionality, they try to care as much as they can, but they're always limited to technology, version, security, right? And the language support, so on and so forth. There's so many attributes there that can become an impediment for you moving forward, for the expansion. Again, depends on, like, right now it's in SaaS level, function level. If you have an open source, it will be much more easier to overcome this difficulty. Efficiency. And actually, efficiency performance is tied to tied, side to side, because think about if you launching in the Kubernetes, you have a container and Docker. Execution a long task of certain function service can be much more expensive than running a workload on a dedicated server. Because every time you want to, it's event-driven, right? If you want to scale up, you will keep doing it, keep launching up. And there is a latency over there, right? You launch a container, it will take time. That's different from mainframe, it's always running, burning. You just use it. Use or lose it. But here is be very efficient, but be aware of the certain level of efficiency. You have to take care of that stuff. For example, like every time you launch a function service, usually there's a 100 milliseconds latency over there for each container, and you have to be aware of that. So that's something, the real lesson we learned from the implementation. So, so this is kind of a high level, the one I did a project. And this is really talking about the one on the business, and there's real world implementation. I try to serve the net. I haven't seen anybody done that yet, so I'm glad I share my experience with everybody here. But if you have detailed technical questions, feel free in the offline we can have a discussion. So I'm paused here for questions, for Q&A.
Thank you, Charles. Any questions?
like it's something, we did something too advanced, and usually people won't challenge me a lot of times. Go ahead.
I have a question. It seems like you actually put this together from services available already.
Yes, yes, we built some functions, customer functions, but the approach we're taking is configuration versus build, buy versus build, because we want to minimize the homegrown for this business. Because this is all business driven, right? We maintain the modifiability from we buy the builds, the best brand for each area, and take the functions and put them together, integrate them together. That's a ERP, a function-based ERP.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by your conclusion because it sounded like it's a lost journey go this way, as complexity and cost.
The cost-wise actually is less if you look at overall cost. The stewardship, yes, ownership is a challenge. The ownership is a challenge, but the cost is definitely less. But think about the business level, right? If you're a CEO, you talk to the Wall Street, say, hey, my IT budget is slammed to that level. I have a minimum people. Like if you look at EBITDA, right? Okay, you don't have to maintain minimal presence of the IT. It's a great business value because you leverage the IT functionalities into push on the function side and have the business stakeholders to take care of it.
Oh, nice. So you can manipulate the stock market.
Yeah, it's the all talk about business value. Right? Architecture, we're serving the business needs, and business needs really talk about the business value. That's the stuff we are all doing by just business driven. So basically, what I'm saying is really we leverage this serverless architecture, and by leveraging the FaaS, implemented an ERP, which really creates business value, and it can reflect on the company's value, the market value. That's the beauty of it. Otherwise, we'll talk, right? I always talk about you have to have rubber hit the road, then we'll see what's going on. If we talk about pure architecture, you don't create some implementation, you leverage the architecture, you don't create business value, we're still talking. But here is we're doing something and we create some values.